What is up, guys? It's your boy Yannicki here doing my chapter Deconstruction this week for chapter 251. This one's more of an action-based chapter, and it gave me everything I wanted that you can like kind of really get out of the chapter, especially with the context of the setup of the nature of what's going on. So we cut right back into the action. We've got ending blackmailing Endeavor with Natsuo, saying he's going to kill him. He's saying that he's justified in asking Endeavor specifically to kill him because of the fact that Endeavor's willing to kill Nomu, which is something that I find fascinating because that's not a topic that's necessarily brought up. Is the fact that Endeavor has killed multiple Nomu. And the thing that makes, in my opinion, that especially fascinating is that Endeavor has killed multiple Nomu, and the police know that Nomu are modified humans, which means they're still technically humans, which means either they've intentionally withheld the information from people that Nomu are modified humans, or society in general doesn't care if Endeavor kills modified humans. So I think that actually might end up being something of a conversational point that we could have coming down the road, because the fact that a random criminal is equating himself to a Nomu could end up being a conversational point, especially if it isn't already common knowledge that they are humans. Continuing on, though, we get one of my favorite Bakugo panels of all time now, of him clawing his way through the air. They're immediately springing into action. As soon as the chapter starts, we get the driver immediately popping out the suitcases, and Deku staying back so that he can throw the suitcase to Shoto and Bakugo, and they instantly suit up while moving towards taking the steps forward to get into action, effectively showing that they can do these multiple things at the same time, not missing a beat. Bakugo and Shoto catching their cases without even looking to make sure they got what they needed. And instantly from there, Natsuo's panic and Endeavor. The thing that I think is very important is that Endeavor has already lost one of his sons. And so his hesitation and his concern this chapter directly stems from all the fear of losing another one. He's already at such a bad spot with Natsuo that the idea of losing his son and not getting his son to be able to live a happy and successful life the way he's been envisioning over these past couple of days and having these dreams about is something that's heavily plaguing his mind. And we see that one of the things that I think is important to note is that we've always gotten mostly Shoto's perspective on who Endeavor is. And while it's true that Endeavor is a toxic and abusive person in his past, we don't know how long he's actually felt bad about Toya. We don't know if he's always felt bad about Toya. All we really know about is from the perspective of Shoto about what happened back then, and then the perspective of the victims. But we don't know what exactly Endeavor is thinking in between all these years of abuse and actually now, as far as what his feelings towards Toya have been or are. And so for all we know, he could have always felt bad about that, and that's part of why he went even harder on Shoto. We don't know. We just don't know about that whole situation. So this could be a time where Endeavor and Natsuo finally actually talk to each other, and he explains that he never meant for that to happen to Toya, and that he still genuinely does care about his kids, but he still knows he's got a long way to go. Anyway, when he notices that Bakugo, Shoto, and Deku are mobilizing around him, we instantly cut back to their perspective. Shoto, first off, if you didn't read the viz, go do that. You're doing yourself a disservice. The art is far superior, way cleaner. The details in the flames and the distortions around his eyes, the concentration into the point, the paneling, the everything, just top notch. Even with ending trying to convince him to Shoto to kill him, even the details of the way you can tell that Shoto's burning his sleeve off as he's charging forward, just dear old dad. But even the structure of the dialogue, instantly Deku, who had stayed further behind, making it a point to use his quirk for the best suited for the task, and Bakugo instantly speeding in while he was slightly distracted so that he could react, breaking the sound barrier, letting us know that Bakugo was now Mach plus hypersonic feats. And by instantly saving Natsuo and calling out that nobody's dying, Deku uses the Air Force to jump in the air. I love that. Technically, it's once again him kind of replicating Bakugo's style, but him using the full finger effect to blast himself really high in the air really fast, and then black whipping on the next page. Now, some people feel like this is too fast to see Shoto be able to speed blitz this guy and pull up and hit him with essentially a flash fire fist and roast them, and for Deku to pull out the black whip. But it's important to note that Deku has already been using the 20% power jump thing since the Culture Festival. And the reality is that the issue with Black Whip was just figuring out, its equivalent egg in the microwave scenario of not exploding, which he's already familiar with, like kind of feeling through the powers of One for All and getting a gauge on it and properly like placing what the limiter is. So finding that 20% that he's already known about and been comfortable with One for All, and then applying that same thing or that same mentality to Black Whip, accessing the power, allowing himself to be able to utilize it without having extreme repercussions. These are all just the furthering and execution of the fundamentals that he's already acquired. So this isn't some massive leap. Bakugo already had the AP shot. In fact, I would actually argue that the whole point of that panel wasn't just to have, like, once again, Horty doesn't waste panels. We talk about this. The whole point of the joke with him, like with their restraining order, yes, it's meant to be funny, but it's also to indicate that the very premise of their assignment is something that Bakugo had already been doing for 4 months. Keep in mind, Bakugo developed AP Shot before the provisional license exam, which means the idea of focal point power focusing and sending out your maximum power has always been a thing, or has been a thing for over 4 months before Bakugo even started focusing or working with Endeavor. So now what he's really doing is effectively one perspective. The way he did this chapter was, instead of using 2 hands, he used one and actually cuffed his hand into more like a, whatever you want to call this shape, this thing, and use that to concentrate the beam and go faster. Shoto has always been using max power ice blast. Think back to the sports festival. That's basically one of the first things you see him do when he immediately freezes the entire building in the battle training arc. These are all skills that they've already had. So really, all he's been doing is like figuring out how to. And then we even saw him start a flash fire fist against Tetsu during joint training. So he's still been practicing the moves. Endeavor's just giving him advice on something he's already been practicing. That's pretty much the case for all 3 of them. So this isn't 1 week that they've been training this. This is 1 week of bonus advice from Endeavor on skills they've been honing for the entirety of the school year. So that should hopefully contextualize it a little better for you guys that maybe weren't as comfortable with the power scaling or how quickly they managed to master it. I also think it's important that we have this be the 1 week thing because of the fact that it opens up us seeing other students training more. So like I said, I think 2 or 3 video or chapter breakdowns ago, that we have the potential for this arc or for the next 4 months to bounce around between any students within the class, because all of them are doing some form of hero studies, whether they be class 1A, class 1B. We could cut away to Shigetsu kids. We can cut away to Kitsubutsu kids. These are all viable candidates because they're all, one, shown on panel. We're discussing how hero students around the world or country are being pulled into this. But 2, they've all been introduced, and they don't have to be none of them have any reason to be just one-time characters. Yorashi and Kami came back. So the idea of Shindo or Nagisa or any of these other characters that were shown from the surrounding schools coming into play later being impossible seems to me a little absurd. Seiji Shishikura even came back in remedial course arc, even though he wasn't taking remedial lessons. So at least Seiji, Kami, and Inasa we should expect, as far as I'm concerned, to see going forward. So yeah. But yeah, that's all I'm really going to say here. I think the chapter did everything it needed to do. What is important is what comes from here. We either can get the potential transition into a bunch of the other students and their work studies, or we can transition into Bakugo, Deku, and Shoto still working under Endeavor. And with this being now is them each getting their own territory, actual routes that they're like investigating and doing patrols on. So we get like a bit of the slice of the villain of the week vibe for each of them. Finally getting Bakugo and Shoto their first real villain takedowns individually, like 1v1, just like Deku got his fight against Gentle, creating an I am here situation for the 3 of them. But in addition to that, because we can cut around the city, we can also have them run into other students and potentially have arcs or a couple of arcs coming up where it's like Bakugo working with 2 or 3 of the other kids, similar to the way the Overhaul arc was done. And you had the big 3 and Deku working with Kirishima, Uraraka, and Froppy. Took me, I don't know why I blanked like that. So, yeah. That's kind of where we are right now. This chapter wasn't one for, like, we needed to learn a lot. There's a lot of emotion behind the chapter. You can see in Endeavor's face. There's a lot of tension. But a lot of that is expressed through facial expressions, not dialogue. And we already knew that this is going to be, like, if it's a fight, fights usually don't give you a lot to talk about, especially when it's a dude that is relying on Trigger and a hostage situation to even be a threat in the first place. I don't think this guy was much of a threat. If Endeavor, I don't think it would have been an issue for Endeavor to just take this guy in a head-up fight. It was specifically the context of seeing his son captured and being worried about losing another child or even one of his kids dying before him again in his mind. That is what led to that. So if you like what you guys heard today, like and subscribe. I feel like this video is definitely shorter than a lot of the other ones, but there wasn't as much to talk about. Also, don't forget to check out the stream I did on Dustin's channel. I'll make it a point to link that into the description of this video. If you stuck around to the end, thank you. I appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and share if you think other people would like benefit from hearing these kinds of things. Enjoy your rest of your day.